Hey guys, it's Sluggy, and welcome to another video. This time I drew Elsa, and I am a little bit late to the Frozen fan art train, but better late than never, right? So here's the reference that I used to get the lighting that I wanted, and then here's the super simple, super derpy thumbnails that I did, but these really helped me in the end. Just taking 10 minutes to make sure that everything was working at a small scale just makes the bigger painting a lot smoother. And then there you can see that I kept that value thumbnail on the top left just as reference because I know that that works. So I want to make sure that my big real painting is following that. Also, as you can tell, I'm trying something a little bit new with recording. Instead of a screen recording, I'm having an over-the-shoulder camera, and I would like to ask you guys if you think this is better, is it worse, just any opinions, because it's a little bit of a different process, of course, and of how to record, but I want to make sure that you guys like it and stuff. Seeing the artist's hands, or would you prefer the screen recording, because I guess you can't really see the buttons I'm pressing as much as if I was screen recording. But yeah, please let me know what you guys think, if this is better or worse. So here I am just blocking in values of each element. So I have the background, Elsa, and the crowd as a separate layer. The more complicated a painting I'm working on, the more organized I am, making sure that they're all in different layers and stuff. In some of my other videos, when I'm just doing like a simple one character with no background, I just do it all in one layer because it's kind of simple that I don't need to be that organized. But for something like this, I make sure that the different layers are different elements are on different layers, and then I'm also constantly checking my values, because my goal is that Elsa is the darkest and she also has the brightest background, and that way she really stands out from everyone else, while the crowd in the front there are less dark than her, because that's important, because I don't want them to stand out. And then here, once I was happy with how the values were looking, I started using color balance on the different layers to start seeping in some color. And then, but if you try to do that, don't just leave it like that, because you need to still introduce other colors as well, because nothing is ever just one color. So for example, with the background, what I did with color balance was add some yellow into it, but like I said, nothing is ever just one color, so I started introducing some oranges and some purples in there too. And same with Elsa's face, for example. Her whole silhouette, I just added, purple to it using color balance. And then I introduced some reds in her face because, well, faces tend to be redder. So yeah, that's kind of my process for something a little bit more complicated, is keep just making sure that those silhouettes and the colors and stuff work that way. Let's see what else I can talk about. Okay, so another thing that I always like to remind is that I try not to stay in any one place for very long, because I don't want anything to look kind of weird, like one area being way too detailed and way too overworked, I guess, compared to other areas. So I try really hard to keep up the habit of moving around the painting and not working in one area for longer maybe than like 5 or 10 minutes. It's just a good habit, I think, to make sure that you are taking into account all of your painting and not just like a single area. And as you can see that I've been flipping my canvas. There's unfortunately no default Photoshop shortcut for that. You'll just have to make your own. I use Command F to make my shortcut for flipping the canvas, but pretty much what flipping the canvas does is it makes your eye see something that it wouldn't have seen in that one view, because when you're painting something, you can get really used to what you're looking at and you don't realize some of the mistakes that's there. And then when you flip that canvas, it's almost like looking at a new painting. And so it's just a good thing to do, because then you notice some things that are wrong with it that you might not have noticed in the first view. So yeah, it's just a good habit to do. And I guess I can also talk a little bit more about the reference I chose, or that you saw in the earlier part of the video. So I really did take the time, maybe about an hour or longer maybe, of just like really looking for valuable reference that I wanted. Because I had this image in my head of what the painting would look like, but I'm not just gonna go off of my imagination. And so I took the time to Google some images that I think would be appropriate. I think what I looked up was indoor backlighting, because I knew that I wanted it to be her at the party and it's indoor and I wanted her to be backlit. Oh, and sorry that the video goes slightly out of focus here, but thank God that it was during like not a very important part of the painting. I was just futzing around with the background there. So phew, it wasn't that important. But anyway, back to the reference thing. So once again, yeah, like I took that time and in the end it paid off really well, I think, because I had that strong reference to use. And then that wasn't the only image that I used as reference. I was looking at some other artists' work and stuff, but I'm not going to show that because I don't want there to be any confusion as if I made that work or anything like that. But just so you know, I was looking at some other artists' work who had similar lighting, and I just wanted to see how they did it to make sure that I picked up the good parts. But let's say I didn't like something and I just remembered not to, or I added something of my own that I knew that I wanted in there. So yeah, reference, guys. Reference is super important. And I guess the reason why I really like to talk about that is because I used to fall into the trap thinking that like you're a better artist if you don't use reference, because there's, it's often on DeviantArt or like any like, art sharing places that I've seen artists who say like, oh, I didn't use this, I used this without reference and stuff, and it's supposed to seem impressive, but really everyone, like, don't fall into that trap. Like, it doesn't matter, like, who cares? The point is that it's the end. It's where you get to that matters, so don't worry about that. Use reference. So here I'm just starting to, really define her. So I not always, but I really like to work on the focal point of my painting last, because, that's where I'm most excited to paint. So for example, Elsa, like, she's the most exciting part for me to paint of this whole painting. And I want to end a painting strong. Like, I don't want to reach the end of a painting and just wishing it was over with, Like, I want to end the painting feeling like excited still by the end. So I always leave her last, or not her, but anyone that's an important part of the painting last, because I want to be excited by the end of it. And yeah, so some things that I did with her and throughout the whole painting, but mostly I made it really obvious in her, is that I gave her this really cool bounce light on the right side of her face, while she has, this strong rim light on the other side. And in the reference, if you like go back to look at it, there's not really any strong, cool bounce light on the other side, but I put that in there just from learning about color theory, and also because like having opposites, like a warm side and then a cool side, is just generally more appealing. So it's mostly a color theory thing, even though I don't see it in the reference. I added that in there because I wanted appeal. And also, it's just something that I've seen in a lot of artists' work. That's why it's just as important to look at real life and artist work, particularly artists that you're really interested in. So yeah, just make sure that if you're interested in art, definitely do your research and pay attention. Like, don't just look at it and be like, oh, that's beautiful, and then put it in your folder and then don't ever look at it again. Like, definitely look at artists' work and then see what makes it strong. But then also don't just revere it, like, make sure you're critiquing it and make sure that you're seeing things that they could have improved, and then to make sure that you don't copy the bad things as well, So yeah, that's kind of how I decided to paint her face and her body in general. I guess I can talk a little bit more about the story. I guess I was just thinking that this was a moment in the movie where, like, Hans and Anna are off singing, and then she's just kind of feeling kind of awkward as if she was like a teenager at a prom. And yeah, I just wanted to do something a little bit different than the usual Elsa fan art. Like I wanted her in her coronation outfit because I don't think I don't see that as often. Just things like that. And I wanted to capture a moment, I guess, rather than her being pretty a little bit. So yeah. So here's the final image. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. And thanks for watching. Bye.